welcome to Beyond the Lines. It's the fourth installment of Claire in the Garden. It's from the Outlander coloring book, and today I finished the page and it looks something like this in the end. So follow along, have fun. I tell you all about how to add the details with just a little bit of color pencil and gel pen, and I show you in particular how to shade and add the detail to very dark parts of your artwork. So enjoy. So time for the final part, guys. What you think? Are you ready to move on to the next page next week? I am working with Prismacolor pencils today. I've got the whole set next to me to the sides. I had thought for a hot second to work with my Faber-Castell Polychromos because I have a lot of the shades that I used with the Pitt pen, Pitt artist pens. That's the name of them. I had a lot of exactly the same shades with the Polychromos, but I decided not to do that because it sometimes is a little more difficult to add more depth and a little bit of a detail to something if you use exactly the same shades as you used with another medium. So I opted for my Prismacolors, and by the way, sorry for the background noise. I've got my dishwasher running and I forgot to close the door, and yeah, I'm kind of lazy. I don't want to get up. I'm so sorry, guys. I want to get started coloring. I had said in the previous videos that Claire, the basket, the tool, and the doves here are the focal point, and that I wanted to add a little bit of detail to exactly these parts. So I'm going to start with the doves because they're on the upper right hand corner, and I'm looking at my grays. I'm going to decide what pencil I want to use. This one looks fairly nice, so 1054. I want that, and then maybe yes, I'm definitely gonna opt for my favorite shading color, which is indigo blue. I do have the list of all the pencils that I'm using on my blog, so you don't have to write them down. If you want to work along with the video, I suggest you wait an hour after this video comes out, check out the blog post, get all the pencils together, and then watch back on the video and, well, color along. So I'm just going to intensify a few little things here. Not too much though, because I put down quite a bit of shadow and detail already with the markers. So I actually don't need to add a lot, just a few minor details. And these Prismacolor pencils are so creamy, they definitely sit on top of the markers, no problem at all. So I'm just going with those little lines here that are given to me by the illustrator. Just going over them only with a gray pencil for now. So it's quite tempting when you're coloring to stop and say a piece is finished at the point that I was at the end of last week's video. But a little more effort put into a piece can make a huge difference. It just might look a little more complete, a little more sophisticated, a little more well-rounded. And it's not a lot of work to add a few pencil lines to something. Yes, of course, you invest time, but then again, if you colored along, you invested a couple of hours into a page. What's another hour, right? So I'm a really big fan of adding final details to a piece. It could be anything pretty much. Could be gel pen, could be colored pencil. It totally depends on what kind of a style you're going for, what media you used. I'm taking the indigo now, just going over the lower part here of the dove. And I think I want a black pencil for the feet and the beak. Destroying my pencil sharpener, because this is what you do. Oh, and my dishwasher is done. So. I think I need a little bit of a blue on the tail. Oh, wrong pencil. Down here on that tail, just a bit. And maybe a little bit on the wings, like on the under side of the wings, not on the top part. Yeah, dishwasher. I'm gonna unload you once I'm done filming. Something like this. Just to add a little bit of interest and pull it forward, make it more visible. On to the next dove. Since they all have the same color scheme, some of them, well, one of them is a little lighter, this one here. The others are a little darker, and this one doesn't have its wings spread. So I'm going a little lighter on this one here. She's just a little more of an albino dove, you know, or, well, simply a white dove. So I'm being a little more subtle with my detail coloring. I'm really having a very light touch to the pencil, because I don't want too much pigment on certain areas. I just want a little extra there. Can be a little more forceful with the tail because it casts a shadow onto the underside of the dove. My favorite blue pencil on top, especially back here on the tail. I can go a little more intense with the indigo. And I'm being very light on the wings here, just adding a tiny bit, not too much. Black for the beak and the feet. I'm not coloring all of the beak, just adding a little bit of black on the lower part of it. And there's dove number 2. Now this one here should be quite easy to shade because I don't have to do a lot. A little bit of blue. I really like indigo for shading. It's a wonderful color. I mean, it's a wonderful color all on itself, not only for shading, but I really, really like it for shading. It darkens things up enough without it being a very harsh shadow, I think. That's the appeal the indigo has for me. And in contrast to, say, ultramarine blue, it is a warm blue. And I like those a lot. If I don't have indigo, I'm always reaching for Prussian blue. Because I just really like warm blue tones for shading. I think with the brown I'm way more of a cool tone kind of girl, so I like the cold tones of brown for shading. And with gray and purple, it depends on what I'm coloring, you know. I'm less particular there. So again, beak. And the feet. I will add a tiny dot of white gel pen to the dove's eyes, but the gel pen, as you know if you watch me for a while, is the final step I take on a coloring page or in any kind of artwork, actually. So I'm going to add a little white dot in the eyes of the doves at the end. I think as well as Claire, because she needs a reflection in her eyes too, not to look creepy. Just taking care of the details on the feathers of the last dove. And this should hopefully be a little bit of a quicker video, not like the last ones. but let's see how fast I can shade. Because a big part of the shading is already done, since I already added 1 or 2 layers to pretty much any object here that I'm treating with my colored pencils now. So I just have to add the details, but sometimes that takes longer than just giving it the base coat, and sometimes it's quite the other way around, base coat and choosing colors for a certain area of coloring piece or of artwork of any kind can take a little longer, and once you have that base coat in, it's actually just 1 or 2 lines with a colored pencil and ta-da, you're done. So we'll see what kind of page this one is. I do, by the way, have an idea of what I want to do with the next page already, because I'm gonna film that next week. Well, I hope I can film it next week. Should be cooler. It's one of the hopefully final hot days today. 37 to 38 degrees. And I'm filming quite early in the morning to be able to sit in the pool when it's really hot. But I desperately wanted to get this video done. All right. And there's my flatmate. So, just a little of the Dove finished. Let me see, I have to squint. Nope, I need a little more blue here on the tail. Squinting really helps. It's a wonderful thing that you can do to quickly see if your values are correct. I mean, light and shade, not your social values. Ah, gosh, I'm so funny today. Not. Anyway, there's the beak, darkening the eye, and then shading the feet. Okay, so that's the doves. I want to add a little more oomph to all the butterflies. They're not necessarily a focal point, but I feel they're totally getting lost in that piece of work here. So I want to rescue them. And I'm looking for a yellow that I want to use. I think the 102 could work nicely. Yeah. No, it's the 1012. Sorry, I can't read. 1012. There it is. Just add a little tiny bit of pigment to them in the center, just to make them a little more visible. See, I didn't really see this one, so let's quickly color him. And oh, there's another one. It's like, where's Waldo? Where's the butterfly? The other two were down here. Yep. So just adding a tiny little bit. I still want them to be fairly light yellow only, like those Zitronenfalter. German lesson of the day. They are very light yellow butterflies. I think they're lemon something in English, but don't quote me on that. So got that done. Now I think I can move on to Claire. I can move top to bottom for the next part, and I want to start with her hair. I need a very dark brown, and looking at my swatch here, I want the sepia. That's 948. It's a really nice dark cool brown. I want to add that to her hair. I don't want to go with black. So I'm just adding a few details here. Working with the lines the illustrator gave me. It's actually something that I find very helpful no matter what page you're coloring. If you have, oh, that was my filming light. Weird. If you have line work that helps you identify where the shadow is supposed to be or where a detail is supposed to be, use it. It's really helpful. So I'm gonna go add a few lines to her forehead. Also to these wavy curls. I'm gonna take the indigo to it in a minute. But I need a little brown there first. Same here. That curl. And as I always say, turn the artwork the way your hand is comfortable when working. You don't need to look straight on to be able to color or draw something perfectly fine. So, adding a little bit of the indigo. It just makes that dark brown look richer. You can see here on the curls, it almost looks black, but it's not. Depending on in what angle you look at the page, it's a little more brown or a little more blue. And that is something that I really, really like. So I'm using it in pretty much any artwork I do. Same goes here. Almost done with her hair. There we go. She pops out way more, I think, so this is something that I like. Now I'm taking the same gray that I used for the doves to just add a little bit of shading to her headband, because this is something I didn't do. When coloring her, because I wanted to do that with colored pencils, not with markers. Now I need a little more of a cooler, even more cool gray. So I'm thinking maybe a Payne's gray. If I got some. It's a cool gray that I do have that's, well, closest to Payne's gray. It's kind of a bluish tint. Because I want a few more of the dark lines here to stand out. And since I colored with a cool gray, I want to stay with that temperature for her headband. I'm gonna pull the colored pencil, the light gray, a little more. So that the underpainting pretty much is the highlight for her. Same goes here. And need the light gray once more. There we go. There's her headband, and I'm going to use the same pencils later on for the skirt. But for now I want to take care of the skin. Where are my skin tones? Over here and over here. Which one do I want? I think I like the 997. It's a beige. Maybe something a little darker. This one doesn't look too bad. It's called Rose, Seashell Pink. I was reading the French, which I shouldn't do when speaking English. So I'm starting with the beige in her ear. Well, maybe I need to add even a darker shade. Yep, I do. Let's go for, I think that's the one. No, it's not. It's a gray tone. I don't want gray. I do want this one. Sienna, beige sienna. It's a little darker. I think that helps. Pulling her together. At least for the darkest shadows, this should work really nicely. But going over the darker pencil with my lighter beige, I can blend it a little more. It doesn't look too grainy. And it blends in nicely with the marker that way. Same goes here for the collarbones, a little bit of the sienna. And then I'm going to blend it out with the pink beige seashell pink. Just blending it a little more. Also going in with the darker shade here because she's casting a shadow on herself. So a little more down towards her boob area. And blending that out with the light beige. Taking the seashell pink here to add a little bit of definition to her shoulder. But I don't want to go too dark there, so. And then I'm going around the shirt. Just add a little bit of that darker sienna tone just to separate the two a bit and have the skin pop. Adding a tiny little bit of pigment to her jawline, her chin, underneath mouth and nose. Again, this is where she casts a shadow on herself. Same goes for the eyelids. And she has a little bit of a shadow or a bit of a darker skin here on the forehead where the curls fly across her face. I'm adding a little more to her eyebrows. And there I see I haven't colored them in yet, so I'm just gonna do that with pencil. But first I'm gonna blend out. Got a little bit of the blue pigment here on the skin. I don't want that. Gotta be very careful. The Prismacolor is also creamy that you really can pull pigment quite a bit. I'm gonna take the same dark brown that I used on her hair and just add it to the eyebrows. And in the book she has golden eyes, golden amber brown. So let's see, the 942 speaks to me. It's a yellow ochre. That's perfect for the light tone. And now I need the darker one. Nope, gotta check with my browns here. I think I want the 1028. So could fit very well for the darker spot. So I'm just coloring the upper part of the eye with that, what's it called? Bronze. The lower part I keep with the yellow ochre. It's very subtle, you can hardly see it, but I know it's there. So now I need a little bit color for the lips. And I'm taking a rosy beige. For the lighter tone, and for the darker one I take the same beige sienna that I also used for the skin. Ooh. And I'm again destroying my eraser. And I shouldn't, because it really does a fantastic job. And I need even a darker shade, so I'm going for Clay Rose. There we go. Now I'm gonna go on to her skin on the arms. Starting off with the dark shade. And then pulling the pigment with the lighter beige. Just blending everything out. Same goes for the other arm. And again, blending with the beige tone. All right, so that would be the skin. Can put that away. Think I don't need these shapes of pink and skin anymore. I need, no, I do for, hold it. No, I'm going to take the bronze pencil for the shirt. I think it's close enough to the beige tone that I used with the markers. And I'm just going to add a tiny little bit there. Gonna have to change position for my vlogging camera, because once in a while I gotta have a new clip there. So, hope you're not bothered. Oh, you can't even see it. Okay, good. That's a good thing. So I did go for all of the lines first and then adding a little bit of a shadow. I like to do it this way around when I just have one color to work with. Like here, first I have all of the lines in place and then I shade. And it's just very subtle shading, but it helps a lot. Just makes so much of a difference just to have a little tiny bit of colored pencil for details there. So I'm going to the sleeves. First all the lines, now shading. And the same on the other one, which is, well, way more subtle because I think they just forgot to add the ruffles here. So I'm just going to shade it like a normal blouse. On to the very dark blue bodice. I'm gonna take my indigo, and I'm looking for a very dark purple actually. 996 could help, and 933. So these are, one is a warm tone, one is a cool tone of blue, purple. It is violet blue, well, and black grape. So I'm trying the cool purple one first, and then have the grape on top. And then, as the very final color, add my dark indigo. Again, I want to have rich shades of purple and blue here to shade this bodice, which might be a little daunting because it is a very dark blue that I used as my base color. But I left a little bit of space on the spectrum of intensity to actually add a little bit of a shadow here and there or detail. Same here on this sleeve. I'm just working with the lines from the Illustrator and a very light touch for shading. Going on top with my black grape. And finally, indigo. Oops, almost lost my pencils there. A few lines here on the lower part of the bodice. And going for indigo last, as per usual. Then I can go to the other side. So I'm going first where the darkest shadow would be, which is underneath her arm. And then I'm going over that with my black grape. And last but not least, as per usual, indigo. By adding a few lines here on the edge of the bodice, I do actually what did I want to say? Intensify? Accentuate? What? I don't know. Words? Oh, gosh. Heat brain. It just makes for a very nice clean edge here. And it makes for the illusion that the bodice really is on top of that linen shirt here. Okay. I think that's enough for the vlogging camera. Can let her go to sleep for a while. Hold on, because I've got to save the battery for when I'm done filming this video to record the intro. Now, back to the rest of her arm. Or of her sleeve, better said, it's not her arm. Today talking's really not that easy, I guess. I got a heat brain. The difficult thing is when you work with very dark base colors that you sometimes don't see the line work underneath anymore that the artist gave you to determine where a shadow or something is. So you gotta either make up your own or look very closely if you can still see it. I'm doing a mixture of that here. Some lines or shadows I just choose on my own because I think they fit. And some lines I can still see, so of course I'm using them as a guideline on where to put a shadow. And final step, blending everything. Tiny last little bit of that sleeve here, blending this out. Yep, that is not too shabby. I do have a little bit of a glare here when I film, so I gotta tilt tilt my piece of work every so often. It mostly happens with colored pencils because they are so creamy and sit on top of the paper. Didn't have trouble with the markers, but I gotta tilt my piece of work a bit when I work with colored pencils. Or I'd have my face in the camera the whole time, which I don't want. So. There we go. And now for the final part of the bodice. And we're almost done. Just a tiny little bit more. Gotta emphasize a few lines. A little around the shoulder. That's not shabby. Okay. I'm not gonna do I'm not gonna do too much to that ribbon here, and just adding a tiny little bit of that cool gray that I used on this on the headband. Just adding a few lines. That's enough already. Aua. The bodice is done. Don't think I need the blue, and maybe for the flowers let's keep those shades. I'm gonna go forward with the skirt now and have Claire finished. So I'm starting with just adding a little bit of that lighter gray to the folds of her skirt. And also a little more to the bottom, behind those leaves here. So she casts a shadow with her arm onto her skirt. So that's why I'm adding a little gray there. Then I'm going in with my dark cool gray, going over the same lines again, and also adding a little more here underneath the bodice, where that bodice casts shadow, for one, and second, her arm and everything cast a shadow too. So I'm adding details and shading all in one go. I'm going really dark up here because there's not a lot of light hitting the skirt. So going in beneath, underneath these plants here to darken that up a bit. It makes the green pop later on. And finally, I'm adding a little bit of indigo, because that's my go-to shading color. Going really dark here on top. I will go over everything that I colored with my pencils here on that skirt with the light gray that I used in the beginning, just to smooth things out a bit, because this looks kind of grainy. And I don't want that. So that's one thing, one feature of the Prismacolors that I really like. With the polychromos, it's more like layering instead of blending. And with the Prismas, you can blend, but it's a little more difficult to layer and keep every shade that you used. Just gotta get used to it and work with the features of the supply you're using. So I got a little bit of the blue or the gray on Claire's skin up here, so I'm just going to erase that. There we go. And now going in with said light gray, smoothing, smoothing, smoothing. It just brings all of the colors together so well. Ooh. Was a little too much, but I can manage. In some parts of the skirt I want to keep the grainy look, but mostly I want it smoothed out. And blended rather well. So I'm just taking my time. It might be this video is going to be a little longer, because I just looked at the time. I'm about an hour in. And I've got a few more things to color. I might not be able to do that in 30 minutes, but I guess that's fine, guys. It's the last part of the video. I want to end it today. I'll finish it today. And I want to move on to the next coloring page in this book next week. So bear with me when I take a little longer here, and this video is more closer to the 2-hour mark than the 1-hour 30 mark. So, but you know, coloring takes time and you cannot rush. I'm actually kind of rushing, because I don't want this to go on forever. Don't want to keep you guys so long. But you can only rush it to a certain degree. And at home, when you're coloring this page, just don't rush at all. Take your time. Such a beautiful piece of artwork. It has to be appreciated and celebrated, and you know, spend time with. A few details here on the folds, and she is pretty much done, at least for colored pencils. I'm not talking about gel pens. Gosh, I'm adding a little tiny bit of the dark grape here onto her lips, just to enhance the shaded part a bit. And now I can move on to her flowers. And I'm trying to use the same colors that I already used. Of course, I have to introduce green because I didn't use any green yet. But for the purples and such, I want to use the colors that I already used, because if you remember back to the previous videos, I stated time and time again, it calms a page down, or a piece of art. It makes it very pleasing to the eye to have color repetition. So, and it's even with the smallest, tiniest details, if you have that color pop up over and over again, it just makes for a nice calm look. Now for the cool purple, I think let's be brave and take the violet blue. It's kind of intense, but I might go over it with indigo if it's too bright purple for me. Oh, it's actually not that bad. Now the yellow, I'm taking the same yellow that I used before. See if that is enough. Yeah, not too bad. And I said I wanted to add a little cream to these light blue colors, so I'm taking the beige that I used for the skin, and I'm just going to add a tiny little bit of it. And I have to add it down here as well, because otherwise those flowers would look way different, and I don't want that. Though this is not the foreground at all, it's not the focal point. I think it just makes this page look more cohesive and well put together if you add a complete new color to something. Need a little more beige here. If you add that color to something that is part of the focal point, but if you don't add it to the midground section where the same flower appears, it would look weird, I think. So I'm just adding a tiny little bit of colored pencils to these flowers here. That's enough already. So I need a little more of a bronze tone for shading on. I've got a fly in the apartment. I hope it doesn't fly across camera or in front of the audio equipment. If it does, I'm very sorry about that. And it's coming quite close to me. Okay, so we've got a animal guest today in the studio. There we go. And now I need a ton of green. So let's get both of my green palettes. I want the 1005 and I want 911. There we go. And for the cooler shade, I want 907. So I'm having two warm colors, one cool color here, and the warm one to go on top of those yellowish leaves. And of course the stems as well. And I'm also adding a little bit of a mid-tone green here. This is called olive green, to the warmer colored stems and leaves here. And then I'm taking the cool green to add to the permanent green colored stems here. And then I might add a little bit of that cool green to the yellow green leaves. That fly is really annoying me, I'm sorry. I hope it's not on audio. Yeah, flies, sit down, have a rest. Don't buzz in front of my audio equipment. Maybe it listens to me, who knows. I'm also adding that cool green to the olive green. Just makes it a little richer, I think. And what I'm gonna do, guess what? Adding indigo. Just here and there, not too much. I'm going to take the cool green here for those tiny leaves. I think that should be, yeah, that's enough to pull them forward. Now I just have to work on the stems here. Making sure they're well shaded, because the hands of Claire do cast a shadow on them. They're being a little lighter towards the end. That's more like it. I will work on the basket first and then move on to the tool, because it's just, I don't want to smudge anything, and since this is a very creamy pencil, I might just as well smudge things. So the yellow for those tiny flowers here. Hold on. So starting off with the yellow for the flowers. And then I'm gonna go, I don't need the light green here, the yellowish green, because this is covered well enough. I just wanna go in with my cool green here and intensify those lines here on the leaves. It really pops nicely against the gray. I think that green is really a nice color combo with a nude color. And I'm very happy that I chose a gray skirt, because you see it makes all of these plants pop that are in front of it. And it doesn't take away from the plants that surround Claire. That's enough for that part. Oh no, here's another light one. For these very dark leaves here, I'm just gonna go in with indigo. There's the art fly again. She wants to learn how to color. Pretty sure about that. Final leaf. And now I can move on to these chives or whatever they are. Adding a little bit of the olive and of the peacock green. And now I can move on to the black grape for these little bits here. For these leaves here, I just want a little bit of the peacock green in the middle. And I'm going on top with indigo too, just to add a little more depth. For these yellow leaves, I'm going to take the bronze pencil and see if that does enough of a difference. I think I'm gonna add a tiny little bit of the very dark brown pencil that I used on Claire's hair. So let's sharpen that one. And add it just to a few of the bigger leaves. Or of the ones that are definitely in a shadow part, shaded part, darker spot. You know what I mean. Now I'm going to go in with a kind of a sage green. Because I want to add a little more depth, or a little more of a blended look down here, because there is a lot of white in between still, and I don't want that. So I'm just closing those gaps with a little bit of a sagey green. Just the one that I used back here. I'm not going to do that here because there's the basket underneath. So I'm going to work with a brown, which I should choose. Let's see. I like the 1080 still. I think it was a skin tone. Let me see. Yeah, it's beige sienna, this one up here, and I really like it for the basket. And I'm going to add a little bit of that dark brown later. Adding this very dark brown just with the lightest touch that I can manage. Blending the dark brown with the beige. I think I need a little more here. Yep, that's more like it at the handle. Now for the connector piece, and need a little more down here. Now that I do have the details in, I can shade on top on the lower part. Ah, that fly, it annoys me. Gosh. Go play with your other fly friends. Don't play with me, I'm working. Okay. Need a little bit of a darker shade here. And I'm gonna get my trusty indigo to help me with that. There we go. Basket, check. Now only the tool has to be colored, and then I can move on to the gel pen already. So I'm taking my dark gray here and just squiggle that over the tool. I think it doesn't need much on the blade or whatever that part is. Needs a little bit of gray and a little bit of indigo, and then that's that. But it needs work on the handle. And on the handle I will take the dark brown and start, first of all I'm gonna rotate my piece of paper, otherwise that binding of the book is too bumpy for me to work nicely. Would bother me and would make my hand feel uncomfortable. And time and time again, I've said it, I don't want to have it be uncomfortable for my hand to color something. Brown is done, indigo is next. And I want my very dark gray to also make an appearance. All right, that's it for the colored pencils. Can put them to the side. And now I'm gonna get a black gel pen and a white one. I decided I'm not gonna take a black gel pen. I'm gonna take one of these black Copic liner markers. Ooh. Because then I can go in with my gel pen right away and don't have to wait for things to dry. I can give her some nice black eyelashes just by going over the lines that were already drawn in by the illustrator, but they are kind of smudged because of the light pencils I used. Okay, that's all of that. And now I can go in with the gel pen. It's maybe a little bit on the doves. And I'm gonna add some to the butterfly here as well. And to the wings of the bees. And maybe the poppies too. Let's see. Yeah, the poppies too, why not? Because they do have these tiny little white dots sometimes, most of the time, but I think it's at a special point in their blooming cycle. Final check. I don't like the amount of white on the dove's eyes, so I'm going over that area again and just add a little bit more black. I think I'm going to do that as well with Claire's eye. And then I'm gonna hunt that fly once I'm done filming. Okay. That's more like it. So that would finish my page for today. I hope you enjoyed watching along, or maybe coloring along. If you have been coloring along, I would love to see your art piece, so you can connect with me on social media and tag me or send it to me. I would love to see. And if you have any questions or other comments, please leave them in the comment section below. Next week I'm going to be back working on this particular piece here. And I hope you enjoyed this video series for Claire in the Garden. The blog post is up by now for all the pencil marker things, information that I used. Of the things that I used, I should be able to talk. And I will see you next week. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, share it with a friend, subscribe to the channel in case you're new and want to see more. And thanks for your time. Have a wonderful day. Bye.